Hello, everyone. Welcome to Harmonic Heart, a music blog dedicated to showcasing musicians' stories and talent. I'm Chris Millette. I'm excited to have my dear friend, Renaissance man, and multi-instrumentalist, Devin Cheka, here on the show today for a Harmonic Heart interview. Welcome,
Hello,
Devin.
hello, YouTubers and interweb people.
Yes, man. So, yeah, we grew up together, man. So we met. Well, I was in fourth grade. You were in third grade in Cub Scouts.
Yeah,
Yeah. And we just became good friends ever since. So we really grew up together, multiple times a week in our pack and in our troop. Um, yeah, camping trips, Boy Scout meetings, and yeah,
I
we
mean,
both became Eagle Scouts. Yeah.
we're almost at like that 20-year mark of having known each other. I think, like,
Mm.
I think 4 or 5
Oh,
more
yeah.
years, and it would be like 2 decades. And
Wow. Wow. That's a
like a
trip.
long time,
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that, but that's very true. Yeah,
dude.
man. Wow. Yeah, fourth grade. What is that, like nine? Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and there you go. Like
26.
3, 4, 5 more years, more or less, would put us at like a 2 decades sort of like knowing each other's milestone, if you want to call it. Like
Yeah, that is big. Wow.
I haven't
Wow.
annoyed you enough in the course of 20 years.
And I appreciate because I mean, a real dear friend, like, the support. Um, and when I come home to visit from, the East Coast, you're there and we were able to hang out. So, yeah, it's a friendship that I'm grateful for, man. I feel the support,
You know, man. Honestly.
definitely. Yeah. And, I kind of mentioned this before we started recording, but, you know, I'm happy to have you on the show for a couple of reasons. One is that you have been really like influential on my journey as a musician. So again, we were in Boy Scouts together. So we did a lot of camping trips, and a lot of the guys in our troop, played guitar. So, it was like the thing to do.
You weren't
And
cool in play.
right, man. So during those camping trips, we would all just play guitar, jam, and I would be able to sing and like freestyle. Um, and then even aside from that, you would come to my house and we would just jam as well
Yeah.
and like share ideas, techniques. When we'd go to camping trips or summer camp, those week-long summer camps, there would be the campfires where there'd be like skits and we'd
Oh,
get to perform on the skits and stuff like that too. So,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and those are instances of, performing publicly in front of small groups of people, but then also like, bigger audiences too.
It gives you company.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Way back then. I've kind
Mhm.
of, wow, to think that, honestly, some of that stuff is kind of, I semi forgot about it. Like, so you just
Yeah.
reminded me. Some
Hmm.
of it I haven't, wow, you're right. That was all stuff.
It
Like,
was. Yeah, and it's easy to forget. It's easy to not think about it because I hadn't thought much about it, because I've been, actually, now that I think about it, my very first open mic, you were there. Like we went to that open mic at Sam
oh
Ash
man, you're right. God,
in
this
Torrance,
quarantine.
man.
Yeah, yeah, and this quarantine thing. I mean, the dynamics of that stuff might actually change, but like,
Yeah.
I hope some of that stuff comes back. I mean, come on,
I
dude.
know. I hope
You know?
so, man.
There's actually a lot of joints that have closed down that I like. My list of open mics, my roster
Mm,
of open mics is a little thinner now.
mm, mm.
In part because of like some bars closing, and also in part because of this quarantine. Like it was my girlfriend and I were on the same topic because she likes going to open mics too, and she's like,
Oh,
"Oh
sweet.
no, there's a bunch of these cafes and stuff that are permanently closed on Google Maps."
Uh,
Well,
ooh,
yeah, yeah,
gosh.
things are changing, man. But I hope some of that stuff comes back. That was
Yeah,
cool.
it's really, yeah, affecting so many like small businesses. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw an article talking about I saw the headline and it said like, yeah, concerts in LA won't go back until like 2021.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. But going back to the reminiscing, I mean, we used to meet in an auditorium that was a
Yeah.
hall with a stage.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Yeah.
It was kind of like it was underneath it all at that
Mm,
point in time. Like
mm,
every Wednesday, going to those meetings, like we
mm,
happened to be meeting in an actual auditorium. Like,
wow.
ah,
Yeah, just seeing that. Yeah, just seeing the stage. But we would go onto the stage and like
yeah,
play piano.
yeah, yeah. I remember those breakfasts too,
Hmm.
a month doing
Right.
that.
The
Month.
Holy Name breakfast, sponsor breakfast.
Remember that one time, I forget for what though. It might have been a fish fry or something where Brian brought his drum kit.
Oh,
That was
I
cool.
vaguely remember that.
I
Vaguely.
mean, yeah, there was other times where like we actually brought our electric guitars.
Hmm.
Jeez. I mean, it's just so much, so much. Yeah, it's coming back to me now, man. Like boomerang.
Right.
It's coming back.
Yeah,
Like,
because I mean, because I even for my journey, I would think about my lessons. I mean, yeah, Esteban and his brother and I were in a band, and then I think about like in college, I did the music at my church, and then these open mics. But then, I don't think like that was those are real experiences of performing among each other publicly, and then having just the audience for at those Boy Scout summer camps. Um, but it was just fun times and jamming, and we were just able to share ideas and techniques, man.
I mean, that was such a means for us to progress and get better individually,
Hmm.
comparing notes all those years in that
Yeah.
environment. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, we had responsibilities like when we were camping, somebody had to cook and clean and all that stuff. But when there was
Yeah.
downtime, I mean, like we really had an environment to learn off of each other.
Hmm.
I mean, I
Right.
remember going camping, come back home, and like I'd get some inspiration and learn some new stuff. And like
Mm.
I didn't even know the idea was not even in my mind prior to going camping. It was
Mm.
being with another musician or group of
Hmm.
just, and that's such an age. We're lucky in a way. I think we're lucky.
I, I agree, man. I agree, and yeah, because it was a safe environment because we were all friends, and it was a place where we could just try and have fun, and
Yeah,
there wasn't heaviness
that's
around it.
something we just laugh it off.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of it was silly. Like we would just like the freestyles were just silly stuff, and it was just comical, bro. Like it wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to get your take on this as well because again, Renaissance man, multi-talented man, and one thing I'm grateful for the Boy Scouts for is it just exposed us to so much with the merit badges, with all of just going through each rank. We just were exposed to so many different types of things.
Yeah, man.
What value have you seen with that?
And to go in line with that question, like
Hmm.
I didn't get the music mirror badge. I don't think did you get
I
it?
don't think I did. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I don't remember getting it. And so like in terms of the value, like for that question you just asked, like we're talking value. We didn't even get the music mirror badge, and it was
Dang.
I mean, it stuck with us. But
Yeah. Wow.
learning that like working in a group of people, it gives you so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
for instance, I've been in some Toastmasters clubs. They've been meeting
Oh.
online during this quarantine, especially. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still able to practice my public speaking because I meet with them regularly online. But that's not something I do alone. That's actual people I spend time with
Mm-hmm.
online every Monday, and we
Mm-hmm.
do our meetings. So, like with the Boy Scouts, for instance, but any sort of group like that, I mean, the fact that you can compare notes with other people, to think that you're going to conquer the world on your own is
Mm-hmm.
kind of foolish. I think like you should
Mm-hmm.
never even believe that. You should kind of use it as a means to maybe motivate yourself. Like, yeah, I could, be the best at whatever I'm doing in the world, but it takes a village, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
it really does take a village to develop all that kind of stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
think of like all the people I've met through all the different things that I do, not just music. Um, and it's weird how they all get segmented. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, these people know me because like I go to the Toastmasters club. These people know me because
Mm-hmm.
I play guitar with them. These
Right,
people
right.
because it's all like segmented, and a lot of them
Hmm.
are completely oblivious to what else I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, you're into this stuff. Like, yeah, yeah, I do that too. And then like,
Hmm.
okay, like that. It, yeah, spend time with other people and take the best, man, from what they have. Because like this is this is my take. Like, I don't feel like there's enough listening going on in this world. Like people, Twitter, Facebook, and all the other stuff going on. It's just too much noise and not enough like listening. Everybody's like putting their own opinion out into the ether and not
Hmm.
taking enough of it, what is already out there, listening and internalizing, processing it. Because there's a lot out there. I mean, I taught myself how to play guitar just YouTube, man.
Mm,
Like,
yeah, right.
like
Same.
getting
Yeah.
ideas on YouTube, bringing the camp in a way. Like, I mean, it
Hmm.
was.
Yeah.
This is a wealth of information. The fact that you have an internet connection.
Hmm.
Yeah. To answer your
I agree
question,
with that. Yeah.
spend time with other people. Spend time online. Stay at home. Wear a mask.
Right. Yeah. Quarantine is no joke. Let's see. So, how did you first start getting into music, man?
That was that was my that was really my parents and my grandparents, really, because like I didn't think it was cool back in like start learning how to play piano around like 4 or 5 years old,
Mm,
and
mm.
piano is like a really good base to have,
Yeah,
because you
I
learn
agree.
how to read music, you learn how to keep time, and so you learn the multitasking side of it to synchronize both hands, and you also learn the theory side of it, how to read music. But I didn't really have the motivation to practice because I didn't think it was cool, and plus the music I was learning was like a lot of classical stuff, the whole formal training sort of thing. But I didn't like I I question the value of it now.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Could I have done the other stuff without that kind of training? Especially
mm-hmm,
if you
mm-hmm.
casual, the way I would meet with my piano teacher. I just got off the phone with her yesterday, just touching base with her because I haven't talked to her in a while. Uh, she's she's pretty old now.
Ah, mm.
Cancer survivor,
Really?
and
Wow.
in her
Mm.
90s right now. And it's
Wow,
like,
that's fantastic.
yeah, she's survived it, but she's bedridden at home right now.
Mm, mm,
And this quarantine stuff is going on, and so it's like every time I talk to her, I always try to keep it in the back of my mind. It might be the last time I talk to her. Somebody
mm.
had so much influence on me, not just
Right.
musically, but she taught me discipline and stuff like that as to how to
Mm,
practice. My parents
mm-hmm,
enforced it, my grandma and grandpa enforced it. It
mm-hmm.
wasn't until the talent show in fourth grade, really, where I played for Elise.
Oh, oh, wow,
Yeah,
wow.
that
Yeah.
played that back in fourth grade for the talent show, and then from there, um, piano was cool
So, mind
ish.
you, by that time, that's like already 4 or 5 years that you're playing.
Yeah, yeah, it because then it became more about like, because I remember thinking back in fourth grade about, okay, if I'm gonna do the talent show, what would I play? What would be cool to play?
Mm,
And that was
mm,
kind of like the only real cool-ish thing to play,
mm,
in the harmonic minor ish sort of tonality of that song.
mm,
Not really the technicality because it's just arpeggios most of the song. A lot of Beethoven stuff is like arpeggiated,
mm,
but yeah, the subsequent talent shows after that, it was more like, okay, I don't really have to do something super technical for people to like it. Even
mm,
though I
mm,
love the technical stuff, learning new technique and how I can play notes together, but yeah, it that changed my perspective there. And then going into high school with you guys, especially everybody picking up a guitar, that's just how one thing led to another. And then in college, when everybody's gone out of college, I started picking up drums. So
mm,
now
mhm,
kind of on that. I'm still working on technique, but at least I have a practice kit at home.
mm,
I mean,
mm.
again, still baffled by the technique. I was just watching a video yesterday about like you you can do a downstroke on the drums. Like you're not supposed to use your elbow for force on the drums. And
Oh,
so I've been doing habits of just using my wrist because that's what I'm used
mm,
to on the guitar.
mm,
But turns out there's tricks where like you can get more efficient motion by like doing downstrokes while lifting your elbow. So like this lever motion allows you to get more efficient motion because you can do
Mm,
upstrokes, like upstrokes by moving your elbow down. You can strike up. You can move it up, and this kind of motion is for pretty good efficiency. But like
mm, mm,
that's just me. I geek out on that kind of technique. But yeah,
mhm,
that's pretty much the journey I took in terms of like learning things
mhm.
at this point. It was just piano, guitar, drums, fought it, fought the piano, and then eventually thought it was cool, and then learned enough on that to where I bridged over guitar and then to drums.
Okay, okay.
And then,
Yeah, and that example you give with the wrist and the lever with the elbow, that type of detail shows passion and shows, an intense, love of learning, music. And you take that same intensity to all the other things that you learn as well, even outside of music.
yeah, that's true, man. It's life's too short to be like trying to do stuff halfway, man.
Mm, mm,
Try to convince the people I work with for that same reason in terms of
mm,
quality. Writing code all day, day in and day out. There is such a thing as bad code.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
code that is buggy and logic isn't quite sound. So I
mm,
do try to like create a culture. Lead by example.
mm,
Like,
mm,
oh yeah, that was great. You got it to work, but how about you get it to not break when I do this?
mm.
Like
Right, right.
I mean, it's not really making funny as much as it's like, all right, let's push you to do a little better next time.
I see.
Uh,
Yeah, and that's yeah, I appreciate that's a helpful kind of explanation of your progression. And I know you also have been doing producing recently too, kind of bringing all those together.
yeah, it's crazy now that music production with especially simple tools. Like I know you're a Pro Tools guy. I've seen this other guy that I've done stuff with. He not Logic, but the Cubase. He uses Cubase.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And me, I'm a fan of FL Studio because it's so simple
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
parametric equalizer. They have this special equalizer that lights up and it's got like this rainbow. Literally, it looks like a rainbow. But I mean, in terms of controls, you can could really do some really cool stuff with. I mean, it's an EQ on steroids. It's
Oh.
a ridiculously good equalizer. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, with music production, I think it eliminates the need for technique, man. Because
Mm-hmm.
you can just input the if you once you become one with the computer in a way, like you can just input what you hear on screen and then generate the tones and fiddle with the dynamics so it sounds the way you want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of eliminated some of that need. It drills down to just creativity. Like most
Right.
DAWs, I feel just pack it down to that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have tools, do something with it.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
agree. Yeah, I think producing, mm, there's a certain level of create. It's a particular type of creativity that comes with producing that I don't think gets a lot of credit. I think sometimes
yeah,
people kind of look down on certain types of producing, but not understanding the way people select sounds, the way people arrange beats and songs, even the way people like flip samples. There's a certain creativity that goes into that. And I think just because the person isn't doing that on an instrument, they look down on that particular type of creativity.
yeah, it's underappreciated stuff, man. There's people that go to school to actually learn how to be sound engineers. Essentially, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's that is I'm not going to call it a science because it's not. I don't even think they regard it as a science because there's so much like taste involved. But
Mm-hmm.
there is a certain amount of work and expertise that goes into it that I agree with you, man. It goes unappreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can attest to it too. Like, I mean, when I want to like put the lid on a song, for instance, in terms of producing it and mastering it and stuff like that, there's we're talking a couple hours of work. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, usually
Yeah.
that's like my Saturday nights when I get into
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, I'll
Yeah.
start at like 10 p.m. after
Mm-hmm.
dinner, and then I'll just be running with headphones till like 3 a.m. because
Right. Yeah.
it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot work, man.
It is for sure. Yeah, no question, man. Yeah, we have very similar paths, you know. Like I started on piano lessons when I was younger, and then in high school picked up guitar. Um, I want to do drums. I haven't done drums, and then in the past 2 years started with producing. I want to talk a bit about music theory,
Hmm.
you know, and you kind of started this conversation, and I think it would be nice to go into it a bit. You know, I think because it was similar for me to learning, you know, those classical songs. And at first it was cool. Maybe around like year 4 of my lessons, year 5, I just disengaged and I stopped practicing as much. And my mom, she always talks about like once you stopped the lessons, then you started playing all these like contemporary songs on your own, and she taught like, you know, I just was more kind of engaged and interested in piano when I was like freer to learn things I wanted to learn.
Yeah, dude.
Hmm.
It's like because that happened around eighth grade for me. I think when I switched from playing a classical song for the talent show to playing at that point in time, "No One" by Alicia Keys.
Oh, right. Wow. Yeah, classic.
Yeah,
Well, contemporary classic.
very classic, right? Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, she in that song had a lot of broken chords, not necessarily
Mhm.
arpeggios, but like a lot of broken chords in that song. Just,
Mhm.
I mean, that down, 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 down. I mean, that is
Mhm.
just, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
a chord, man. I think it was E major or something, but
Mm.
yeah, like I grew, I know what you mean. Like you start with the classical stuff, and then eventually want to go do something cool. And once
Mhm.
you hit that, like you, it's hard to go back. I feel it's hard to
Mm.
go back
Mm.
to learning classical stuff.
You know, and it's interesting, even more recently as I've been, let me see, there's just so much. Because, well, I'll just say more recently that I've been playing and playing with scales, I've noticed it's easier for me to even identify key signatures because I have the tactical experience of playing those scales on the piano. So it's like, yeah, I visually see the sharps and the flats now. So it's easier for me to like say, oh yeah, well that's, you know, the D major scale. Whereas when I was learning it back then, it was like the D major scale has two sharps because this picture on the page says there's two sharps. So that's why, but that's not the reason why. So that's even like interesting
So
for me.
true, dude. Like it's affected the way I memorize songs too. Like I reading music's great. Like you should learn how to read music at least to understand notation and stuff. But like once you've understood like chords and key signatures and all like the whole thing starts to become a picture in your mind. It's so easy to memorize a song. Like for instance, like memorizing the first two pages of Moonlight, the third act of Moonlight Sonata, because I played
Mhm.
for a talent show in college. Like
Mhm.
that was not that difficult because I knew it was key of C sharp minor with some harmonic minor stuff, so I can like throw in pretty much anything in that harmonic minor scale. In that
Mhm.
harmonic minor setting, it would be like fair game to just bump a key even as long as I'm
Mhm.
bumping real
Right.
low.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
remember the chords. I think I don't even remember now. I haven't played that song in a good year or so, but I think it was like I had to recite the chords. I think it went from like a C sharp minor to an A flat major. I forget if it. I think
Mhm.
it would be flat major to an E flat, and then back to like an A flat. There was like some weirdness because it's like it. Man, Beethoven's a trip.
Okay. Okay.
It was like C sharp to A flat to the E flat, but it's like this weird six E flat, I think, and then like
Okay.
it goes back to the A flat, but the A flat is not the
Mm.
whole chord.
Right.
It's the A's, and you're like, no, 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 no,
Mm.
no,
Mhm.
no, no, you know.
Right.
Yeah, that yeah, you get that stuff down. I feel like it makes it easier to memorize the classics.
Mhm. Yeah, I've noticed that too. And again, yeah, just being more familiar with chords and scales. So there was a Sarah Bareilles song I started learning, and then when I went again back to like I was learning it by the sheet music, and I was like, oh yeah, well this is a lot easier to know which notes because we're in this scale, and it was just when I had the tactical experience in my head, was easier to look at, the paper. So I think it's interesting. Clearly, we're talking about the importance of knowing music theory. I think it's
When it clicks,
interesting
man,
how it's
matters.
how we were able to take it in. I think is like
Yeah.
the interesting part and like how it's taught and things.
Yep. Yeah. Love Song is another one of those. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Barry. I can never say her last name. Barry Ellis.
Oh yeah,
Like
Bareilles. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that song too. Yeah.
that has that pattern on the left hand. That dun 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 dun. Dun,
Mm-hmm.
there's a pattern there. And as soon as it clicks and you recognize it, it's like, oh, okay, so I memorized the whole left hand of the song.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Oh right, right, right. Yeah.
it
Hmm.
was not that big of a deal. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember back in eighth grade, for instance, I saw that song. It's like, how is this how is this happening?
Right.
It,
It's interesting. And there was a time, even while I was taking lessons, I love my piano teacher. I learned so much from her in playing and technique. I think for me, we were learning really cool songs, but it was a lot of just like learning this. We were learning the songs, learning the key signatures and scales, like what they look like on the page. Um, but for me, I still had a question of like, but how do you compose this? Like, how do you? I was like, is there a science to music? And I didn't know if that was a dumb question, so I never asked her. So if I did ask her, then she could have like opened that up to me. Um,
you
and
need
I
to take
just
that down or not.
right, exactly like I just thought maybe they just know how to, and I thought
Yeah,
maybe people were
you the
guessing.
Matrix of asking that kind of a question.
Right. And I think maybe on the periphery like heard of music theory, and somehow we started talking about it, and then you were already like ahead. I'm like, yeah, like music theory, it's that thing. And then you put me on to David Harp's book, Music
Yeah,
Theory
dude.
Made Easy, and we were having conversations about that.
hmm that
Yeah.
book is worth it.
So like
Leverage your local public library, kids. I can't stress
mhm,
that enough. I mean, post pandemic. I mean, when
right, yeah.
they open them up again. Leverage your public library, man. It is. There's a lot of wealth in that knowledge there. Just because it's free for anybody to read it doesn't mean everybody reads any of the stuff there in the
Mhm.
library.
How did you get into music theory in that way?
In
In
that
that,
way, I would
yeah.
say it really started to click around ninth grade, where eighth grade, ninth grade, where going into my first high school, it was a gospel choir, and I started like playing keyboard for them. And gospel music tends to not really have like sheet music associated with it as much as it's just a by ear, you feel it kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And not to be like sounding blasphemous or anything like that, but like the lady that was helping out with the choir, for instance, she was like, yeah, it's kind of a gift to be able to like read music and play by ear at the same time. And to me, it's like you can't limit people like that. There's got to be a way. Like, what makes you so special? At least
Mm-hmm.
my punk mindset at what would I be, 13 years old. I didn't really hear it for what she was saying like that. I thought, okay, I got this. And it took me about a year to to learn how to play by ear. But something about that endeavor of playing by ear after already knowing music theory really made things click in terms of things like
Mm-hmm.
chord progressions and like harmonies going from like one measure to the next. Like, how do you know you go from, say this one bar is using like an E major chord for it. So okay, that I guess you could play an E note, but you're still just solid on that E, as opposed to the kind of inflection you can have if you were to do the two or the six with an F sharp or like a C sharp. It gives that slight leaning into the next one, versus when you end the song, okay, you want to end on that solid E note.
Yeah.
Um, those kinds of things really started to click after learning how to play by ear. And then more so learning once I learned how to do modes on guitar. I would say it was like 2 points where that really started to make a big impact on the way I play. Is learn to play by ear and learning how modes work. Because I
Mm.
mean, modes,
Yeah, speak to modes a bit. Yeah.
yeah, it's people think like, oh yeah, you play piano, so like you understand like modal playing and phrasing and stuff like that. But you're just because you play piano doesn't mean you really understand how modes would work. Uh, I think because the fact that you have two hands on the piano, it serves as a handicap for you to get around understanding modes. You might know the names, you might know which piece of that eight note scale is going to give you that feeling, that color that you want.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
on a piano, you don't have to be as conscious of it versus like on a guitar, on an electric
Mm-hmm.
guitar, on a lead guitar, where
Mm.
most of the time you're playing one note. Even if you're shredding, playing multiple notes at the same time, you really have to be conscious more on an instrument like that because you have your 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 means of conveying that kind of feeling to the listener are limited because you
Mm.
just
Mm.
can play the one note at a time where you hit the chord. Versus on the
Uh,
piano, you can
mm.
get the chord here and play the note here, or vice
Mm.
versa. But
Interesting.
you have, I feel you don't learn enough about the you don't get a deeper understanding of the modes until you play an instrument like the guitar.
Mm. Mm.
That at least that was the case for me because I mean I did not really feel them like, and you get the ones that you like too. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, for me personally, like I love metal, and I love all the technical, crazy music that can be played with that style. So I do tend to gravitate to things like the minor, harmonic minor,
Mm. Mm.
doing things like with Lydian, weird Lydian stuff, and diminished scales. Obviously, those are the things I like to play.
And for the
Uh,
people that don't know what modes are, could you give like just a little explanation, like a
oh yeah,
yeah.
so there's a guy at Sam Ash I used to chit chat with. Um, he he said his music teacher, and I think this is the textbook definition, is there's scales within scales. So like your major scale, you go say C on a piano, it's the white keys. You go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Those are eight. And if you start that scale on the C, you're essentially in your major mode. I forget the name for it. It's it's not there's a poetic name for it, but it's
Hmm.
the one everybody. It's the major stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And if you were to do that whole scale starting on D, like you go D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, those like that, that's a different mode. Because yeah, you're in the key of C, but you started on the D, and
Hmm.
there's a different feeling that goes along with that, and that's the modes. Like you do that for each of those eight tones in that
Yeah.
scale. Those are the modes, and then there's like a bunch of poetic names for each one, like
Yeah.
Aeolian, like Lydian,
Hmm. Hmm.
Mid-Lydian. The minor one I think is the Aeolian one. I'm trying to remember the others. Dorian. Dorian's a weird one to me. I'm still kind of
Hmm.
not. I don't understand the Dorian. My Dorian dialect is not refined as it should be.
Hmm.
Uh, the that's one that's kind of always just dangled over my head. It's a
Hmm.
very puzzling one. I know some of my favorite guitar players use that quite a bit though. Like Jimi Hendrix and Carlos Santana tend to use Dorian. Uh, but I don't get it enough to where I could just be like playing and like let me hit a Dorian note. Like I don't know. I'm speechless when I'm playing. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go Dorian right now. Like I don't know. I
Hmm.
would just play
Hmm.
the Dorian note because there's characteristics of like when you switch in mode. Yeah, I mean I could talk for
Yeah,
ages.
and like yeah, each mode has its own yeah like color and kind of feeling when you start on that particular note, even though it's in essentially the same notes of a particular major scale or minor scale or what
Yeah, like the easiest one to communicate the way it feels, I would say, is Phrygian, because the
have you.
Phrygian mode is the one you hear in like bullfighter music or a lot of like speed
Mm,
metal where it's like dun 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 dun, because it's
mm,
very hinging on that like that semitone. Like
mm,
you literally just have like a chord. For instance, you're playing the E chord, and
mhm,
then you play the F chord. Like all you did was take what you were playing and shift it up a semitone, and then back
mm,
down a semitone. You're
mm,
pretty much in that Phrygian sort of
mm, mm.
that Phrygian mode.
Yeah.
But there's other ones that are a lot more sneaky in the way they make you, the way your ear perks up.
Mm,
And those are a little harder to spot, like in when you're listening. Lydian is
mm,
another one of them that you be like, oh, it's major, and then you hear there's that there's tweedles in all these little modes where you hear it, it's like, oh no, that's not major.
mm, mm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and
uh,
that's an interesting point that you make too about because the piano, you have the two hands and you're able to play chords and melody at the same time. So kind of the modes being different. Well, in terms of understanding and like practically playing them versus the guitar. If you're shredding like lead guitar, you're mainly hitting one note at a time. So you feel like it's more clear to you in your head um, to get the different distinctions between those modes through playing guitar.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's one thing I've been working on when I do pick up my guitar on occasion is I know as a musician you really should know where your weak points are, and I feel my weakness now is not not knowing all the different ways I can do the same chord. So
Mm-hmm.
D major, D 1/8, which is the octave version of it, D sus, for instance, D augmented D, D7, like all these different chords. Like I know the general note makeup of the chord in a way. A lot of them can be like gap scales, but in the context of shredding, for instance, say you want to play an arpeggiated D7, that's a little more technique involved because you have to be mindful. Like, okay, you're not gonna are you going to do a major seven or a minor seven, for instance? If you are going to,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then are you going to string skip to the seven, or are you going to try and like get like 5 frets, 5, 6 frets stretched on your hand? Like that's for me, like as the player, like how I would play a seventh arpeggio on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of a weak point for me.
Mm. How do you go about learning like those new skills? Like if you feel that you're lacking in an area, how do you one will recognize that and then go about building on that skill?
So this is part of that whole adulting is hard, as
Mm-hmm.
the kids would say.
Right.
Adulting is hard. I used to be able to just come home, grab my guitar after doing my homework, and I would just blah until either my fingers bleed or my muscles and my wrists were just gonzos. But now I don't have that kind of time, so I have to be conscious of that. And so it usually toggles between two things. Like if I'm crazy about a certain new thing that I want to learn on the guitar or that I want to try and explore, then whatever practice time I do have, it gets dedicated to that thing. For
Mhm.
instance, there's a lick that I actually want to put on my Instagram. I haven't had time to put a video on Instagram. Wow, I should probably get into that. But it's a lick that took me about 6 months to learn, and it's very
Mhm.
simple.
Mhm.
Context is the pentatonic lick. It's a kind of a finisher lick. I
Okay.
think like Paul Gilbert tends to use words like that, or
Mm.
there's certain guitar players that are like, yeah, this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing you play on when you're shredding to like end your solo.
Okay. I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very big but predictable, and
Mm. All right.
it took me about 6 months to learn it. And the way
Mm.
it happened was I was just tinkering one Saturday morning with it, just on the guitar, dueling around, and then I was like, oh, you know what? That would be so cool if I could play something like this, where the lick is taking the same motion and then just moving it up the pentatonic scale until you're
Mm.
eventually made it full circle. And it goes in
Mm.
those four
Oh.
parts, so you can play
Mm.
it along pretty much any chord progression because it's pentatonic and it's in those 4 parts. So you just start with the one, with the two, with 3, and then with 4, and then you end on a high note.
Mm-hmm.
That took like 6 months to learn, and so I would say it toggles between those two things. You find something to get crazy about, then
Mm-hmm.
once you're crazy about it, stick with it
Mm-hmm.
in your little managed windows of practice time
Mm-hmm.
and stay consistent, more or less, because
Yeah.
really the reason I didn't get a chance to practice much over that 6 month period, but I was consistently hitting it more or less every Saturday morning for about like 10 minutes, just practicing that because it's a lot of alternate picking in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of about 6 months, I was able to actually nail it down. So now I just play it as a warm up.
Mm.
And so I would say that's as you start adulting more, you have to structure your practice kind of in that way.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, because it's focused, but that also makes, well, it makes it more manageable. But then it's building up that muscle memory over time as well.
Yeah, yeah. You
Mm-hmm.
find something that you like though, because it's I tell you what, it's hard to stay motivated when you're like
Mm-hmm.
rarely practicing, and then when you do, you're practicing the same thing because you want to learn it. Like
Mm-hmm.
make sure to find something you really, really want to learn how to play.
Right. Yeah, I get that. I'm just thinking about, you play piano, you play guitar, drums, and producing. Yeah, where do you want to go with those? How do you see them coming together? Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, you just, I mean, clearly you just love playing instruments and learning. Um, yeah, do you have any thoughts on
Where
that?
the direction, man. There was another guy I was talking to about the same subject. In a slightly different context, about a week ago, I
Yeah.
was talking about this more or less same subject, but the question was asked in a different context. But yeah, in terms of direction, man, it's like, for instance, because I'm a web developer during the day, so
Mm-hmm.
when I was making sites and stuff like in my spare time, and I still do. There was a barbershop that I was making a website for, and this kind of came in handy in that sense where, okay, I can produce music, I know how to make a song where it's not just dissonance, it actually sounds like something. So I produced music for this video showing showing around the shop, the barbershop, and
Oh,
I
wow.
made it myself. And it was kind of a culmination of all these things came together, and I put it all together with background music in the video, and I didn't have to infringe on anybody's copyright because I made it
Mm,
myself, all that stuff.
right. Yeah.
So there's that side of it, and the other side of it is the lottery ticket thing. It was a podcast I was listening to like 4 years ago or something, more or less. I think I was still in college, but the guy was like a producer, and he was talking about I think like samples and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And in a way, he described them as lottery tickets. And I
Hmm.
feel like
Hmm.
for the majority of musicians, especially in this future we're going to be living in, where production software is easily accessible for people, people can equip themselves to learn how to play music or produce music as long as they have an internet connection.
Right.
They, we're going to see a lot more of that, I think, especially with platforms like SoundCloud. We're going to
Mm,
have a lot more just kind of maybe one hit wonders and sort of lottery tickets where people
mm,
produce a lottery ticket and
yeah.
maybe more than one until one finally catches on and you might hear
Mm.
it on the radio if people still listen to radios.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, what's really popular now in the producer community are these sample packs where people,
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
create like, I don't know, like a groove. Like producers will do that and kind of create a whole list or like a package where they sell a number of
Mm-hmm.
these files, samples. They either put them out for free or like sell them. And yeah, it's kind of like whatever, like one of those perhaps could be used in a song, and another producer will sample it.
I thought
And
about getting into some of that stuff in a more technical sense because I'm a developer. I know how to build these kinds of things. I've actually read articles about how to do these kinds of things. I thought
mm,
about putting together because I know there's already platforms where you can get plugins for your DAW.
mm, hmm
But
yeah,
I thought make my own, man.
All right. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. True. Interesting.
That seems pretty
Wow.
cool to actually do. Make it
Hmm.
you have to
Wow.
you
Hmm.
take like C++ code typically, and once you get it all right for your digital signal processing, you compile them down to DLL, and the DLL essentially can be used as a VST plugin as
Wow.
well. And
That's interesting.
it's not that complex if you know how to code. You just gotta
Wow.
like what do you want to make your little
Hmm.
plugin do, you know? But
Wow.
I
That's
thought about
awesome.
getting into that too. I mean, there's so much to
Hmm.
do in the world, man. I mean, it's just life's too short, you know.
I agree. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Since you have that development side to be able
Yeah.
to get your own, yeah, like VST. Wow.
I
Hmm.
mean, sample packs are really cool though too. Like I've dug into some of them too. Like some of these singers, especially, they have like royalty free samples of their vocals.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, nice.
and I'm not talking like screaming dying cats in your backyard. Like no, these are vocalists that have phenomenal voices. Haylene, I think she's one of them where she has some samples you can pay for, some samples that she's got on her site for free. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's others that just really good vocal samples, you know. So if you think you need to sing just to make a hit, like you kind of can get around that these days without even
Hmm.
knowing how
Hmm.
to sing.
Interesting. Interesting. Let me see. Hmm. Wow. Hmm. I
Yeah,
am thinking.
that's all right. As long as you're not counting sheep, man.
As long as I am not falling asleep, man. Um,
It's
hmm.
Saturday, anyways, man. What time is it over there? 4.
It's 4. It's 4 o'clock, and you are like 1 o'clock right there over there. Hmm.
Yeah, got a couple things on my to-do list today. I gotta get to too. I mean, my room is. I gotta. I think I'm gonna take a box cutter, cut up a bunch of these Amazon boxes that I have because they're empty.
Oh. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, because I've been ordering so much stuff online. Like, I need to. I need to get into that. Otherwise, you can't walk into my room, man.
I listened to your SoundCloud, man, and the things you have on there is really good.
Oh wow, that
What's that reaction?
like I didn't. I did. I just like for instance, like when somebody takes a look at my personal website or even a website that I've built or something that I've put together and they're like all right with it. It's like if the reaction is anything other than this is trash, I'm like, man, they took the time to look at what I have. I don't know. Maybe it's just a high that I'll eventually get over it. But
That's amazing, man. No, that's great. You're just deeply grateful right now.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to get more into getting better stuff onto the SoundCloud as well. But time, time keeps ticking. But yeah, man, I
For sure.
think it's a lot coming from you.
No, I was listening this morning and I genuinely was thinking this is really good. And you had different types of stuff on there too.
Yeah, there's a metal song I wanted to actually get on there too. That idea has been stuck in my head. It's very Dimebag Daryl sort of song.
I don't
Very
know that.
much Cowboys from Hell,
Hmm.
Cowboys from Hell type of vibe. I mean, it is a fast riff that I came up with a
Hmm.
friend years ago, about 2 years ago, and then I put a solo together for it, and I practiced it. I have it. I just gotta sit down with
Hmm.
my sound card, plug the guitar in, and actually get some recordings of it. But it is a metal tune. Um, one day I'll get to it because that idea is like in here. It's been here for a while.
Hmm. Sweet. Yeah, one thing I was curious when I was listening, I mean, I saw you have a remix up there. There was
Mhm.
some other, for some of the other ones, I mean, yeah, I could tell you programmed in the drums. I heard like some guitar on there, and I was curious if you had played that guitar, if you used a VST, or like kind of your process with producing.
Yeah. So I still have a ways to go in terms of getting distorted guitar to sound the way I want it. And I'm not quite there. I have spent countless hours watching a lot of YouTube videos and reading a lot of posts online as to how to get that sort of thing right. Doubling guitars over, taking the EQ, listening for the hiss. There's when you record a distorted guitar, there's a hiss on the
Mm.
EQ. You listen for that and you make a cut there. There's a lot of tricks to getting electric guitar to sound fat, but not just ear make your ears bleed loud, you know.
Mm. Mm.
And I'm not quite where I want to be with it, but I'm getting better at it. And in terms of plugins, man, like there are some good ones I've considered buying, but because there's so much free stuff online, um, it's it's really hard to convince myself, for instance, of the value of when I have the free stuff online, and then because I like using, like I still have my distortion pedals, I have my fuzz pedals, and my amplifiers have outputs. So even if I wanted to take my Fender or my Line 6, plug it into my computer using, solid state distortion coming straight out of an amp like that. I mean, it's just I don't have enough motivation to pour a lot of money into those kinds of projects.
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of motivation to pour a lot of money into any project really because of so many alternatives these days. I mean,
Mhm.
for instance, some of the websites that I've built on the side, I don't have to pay hosting. I just have the domains. Like there's things like that where I'm always looking to save a buck, man. I always
Yeah,
always
for
got to
sure.
be right. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I'm always looking to save a buck. So, for instance, like on the SoundCloud stuff, those are free. Those are free distortions I found off of Google.
Oh.
VST obviously because of the
Mm.
easier one to install. I don't have an understanding of how to do other plugins like that. Um, but yeah, keep it simple, man. Keep it simple. Like Pro
Mm.
Tools, I don't even know how you manage the complexity in that because
Ah,
that is
ah.
that kind of that kind of system. Just the UI, I think would just go way over
Mm.
my head.
Mm. No, I think you would get it, man. You would get it for sure.
It's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it took. Mm, I mean, it definitely took me time and patience, but now that I have, well, there's so much to do in there. I can just do basic stuff on there now, but it just, it took me a long time to just be able to do this basic stuff.
Huh.
But now that I can, um, I'm like, okay, yeah, like I get the user interface now and the experience. So in terms of, but there's even
How do you record audio on Pro Tools? Like, is there a tracking system on that? Because like FL
right.
Studio, but I
Oh,
think it's
nice.
different the way it works.
I've heard it's different. Yeah, it's like a multi-track kind of view in Pro Tools, and
Okay.
then you're able like there's different types of tracks you can pull up. So one of those is like audio. Um, so I have this interface, this Focusrite interface, and I have actually use this is the microphone I use to record my vocals. I've
Wow.
also recorded like acoustic guitar with this mic too. Um,
Dang.
so this goes into my interface, and then it's a box, and then the interface goes into my computer. So um, a lot of it. I mean, the simple answer to your question is you open up an audio track and press record. But the more complicated thing is like the actual engineering of it, of like where do you place the mic, how do you adjust the gain on the interface on the audio track in Pro Tools. How do you check that the input level isn't too high or isn't too low? How do you adjust that?
Yeah.
So those are the more technical pieces that are really interesting, that kind of that requires skill and even just knowledge to know to even look for those things. And that's
Yeah,
so
that
I've
sounds very different from the way FL Studio works.
oh really
That does sound very different. Because
oh
like you don't get FL Studio, you don't get a separate view.
mm.
It works off of like, for instance, you have like I assume most of them have this like a mixer board, more or less, where you can
Right,
either
yeah. So there's like
fire.
they have the mixing view and then the edit view. So the edit view
Yeah,
for us has just those different tracks. So there's like audio tracks, there's MIDI tracks that you can put up there. Yeah.
yeah. So the way it works on FL Studio, there's a plugin you put in on the mixer board, and that plugin
Mm.
lets you record audio through the plugin.
Oh.
but
Hmm.
you can take in the inputs and route, like, say you want to process the inputs going into the plugin before it goes into the recorder or
Mm.
after it goes into the recorder.
Mm-hmm.
You can put something before it, like an equalizer or a compressor,
Mm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
have it record with it, or you can put
Yeah.
it after it and have it output it.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
and
Yeah.
then tons of knobs for gain and stuff like that, like you're mentioning.
Hmm.
Yeah, I want it to be good
Okay.
both.
Nice. Yeah. Pro Tools, you can put the plugins on as well on the mixing part too. So you're saying that for FL, you just record through the mixing view, and there's not a view for like just
Yeah,
recording.
pretty much. Like the only view that you have for just recording is like the plugin itself.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So like the
You,
plugin will put up like a window on the screen where you can see like it actually recording.
yeah, you can see when it's hot
Oh.
and when it's not. Yeah.
Hmm. Oh. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they have different designs for a lot of these. I know Cubase is a whole nother like
Mm, mm.
it's a whole nother
Wow. Wow.
universe. You
um. Wow. Wow. So yeah, for you, hmm, you know, piano, guitar, those are, I mean, in terms of actually playing, technically different, but then they have the same language of melodies and like just scales and things like that. And then drumming is, of course, percussion, and that has its own types of language and thought patterns. Piano is also a percussion instrument, but um,
yeah, yeah.
I don't
The
know.
that
I guess I'm curious, like your thoughts on the differences between those instruments.
Yeah, man. Like learning to play drums has really shown me that like personally it's raised the bar for timekeeping for me.
I bet. Okay. Yeah.
And it's really just amplified the way I could not keep time before. Like
Okay.
I I only thought I could keep time before. Like
Uh-huh. Yeah.
you don't know how to keep time unless you learn how to play drums. Like it is just
Mm,
it is it put me in check. It put me
mm,
in
mm,
check learning to play drums, man. And I'm
mm,
not
mm,
even I'm not that great at it, honestly. I still have a lot of work to do in terms of developing like my right foot for the kick pedal and stuff like that. The only thing that I'm good at on the
mm,
drums is independence. I
mm,
can get all four limbs moving in different rhythms in
mm,
independent times. Left hand on the upbeat, right foot on the downbeat, right hand on some sort of accent, and left foot on either the hi hat or this is so the guy online he actually has a he hooks up this setup where it's like a cowbell with a kick pedal before his left foot. So
oh,
either he can
mm,
hit the cowbell with his left foot. He does these polyrhythms that are just off the wall with all four limbs doing all these crazy motions. Um, but I'm decent at independence. But other than that, like yeah, drums really put me in check with timing. But once I started learning, and then now I go back to other instruments like guitar and piano, and it carries over. It carries
mm,
over. It's kind of
mm,
like in high school. I remember in wrestling, for instance, they used to tell some of the guys that used to play football before wrestling season that they, if you join the football team or whatever, you're gonna your football playing football is gonna help you with wrestling, and your wrestling is gonna help you with football. And
mm,
so,
mhm,
like learning a different instrument, you learn to play drums is gonna help your guitar playing. You're gonna learn
mm,
guitar is gonna help your piano playing. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's not like you can only make progress on the piano by learning how to play the piano. I mean, stuff
mm,
carries
mm,
over.
right,
It's a language, man.
yeah,
Music in a way is a language, but I
I
mean,
agree. Hmm.
stuff carries over. Life's
Right.
too short to just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna be a piano player all my life.
Mm, mm, wow, wow,
Who said so?
yeah. Um, well, I can, yeah, I mean, I get that, with I play guitar and piano and producing and things. So, yeah, even just doing this podcast right here, this blog too. Like,
Yeah, this is really cool
yeah,
stuff, man.
thank you, man.
Man, who knows if this even grows? Like,
Yeah,
maybe we'll get like bigger names, you know?
I thought about that.
And
I was like, you know, or like some like emerging artists, like, you know,
Or
I
even
like this guy. Like I like this guy, Coda the Friend and Mahalia and Arlisa. I'm like, man, that'd be awesome to be able to interview them, or like some indie artists, Matt and Kim or something like that, John Allison Weiss. But I was thinking about, I mean, but even still, I mean, this is moments like this where it's like, man, we're having a moment and we're getting to talk and like reminisce and yeah, just talk about our music, which we love, and just growing up together. This is like really, you know, meaningful, and it's on the record, and it'll be on like YouTube and Facebook and the podcast and things. So yeah, I mean, I think regardless, yeah, I think it'll be meaningful. Also, I've also thought about like views. I was thinking about this today. Like, yeah, like the more interviews I do, then it could get more views or something. But I think even just having a lot of interviews would be great, just because it'll show, because the more interviews there are, it'll show like it's even that much more of like a real thing of like, you know, I guess like if you have a bunch of interviews, then you are a page that has a bunch of interviews and that does interviews type of thing. And it's kind of that simple. Yeah.
yeah, where it's not gonna, yeah, it's almost like an archive in a way, unless
Right.
YouTube take the whole
Yeah.
thing out.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that makes a lot of sense
Hmm.
actually.
Right. Because like even it's like you are what you repeatedly do type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I
Like,
mean, 'cause I thought about, yeah, a lot of these programmers, they come up with these YouTube channels and they have like tutorials on how to do whatever stuff with some programming language. But I noticed that a lot of them, they don't focus enough on like algorithms and stuff. And I know this is beyond the scope of what we're talking about here, but like I considered starting a YouTube channel to kind of capitalize on the kinds of problems I face at work. So
mm-hmm.
people that are trying to get into the industry, they see the kind of problems you face at work, and they
Oh.
get a better understanding as to how to deal with those problems, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like, oh, here's the latest and greatest technology. This is the new framework. You should learn this and stuff. It's like, well, let's get back to basics and just teach you how to think.
Oh yeah.
Obviously in the context of being a developer, but nevertheless, like how to actually solve problems that come up on
Mm.
the job.
Yeah,
Because
that's
it
needed. Yeah, for sure.
it happens, man. Where I mean, I'm at work and you get presented with a problem, and sometimes people don't have answers because they don't think about like, oh, what can we do? Like, dude, you have a computer and you can like process data. That's like
Mm.
kind of a big deal if you really think about what you can do.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. No, that's needed. That there's value in that. Like what that type of channel that you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
let me share my screen too. Like I just have the code on one side and maybe the interface on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And just show people like here's how you think.
Mm-hmm.
But that's more down the line. I still got to finish grad school, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
time's always ticking, man. But
Yeah.
this is cool. This really, I haven't had the chance to talk to somebody, for instance, like you, in a while, especially during this quarantine.
Yeah.
Most of my time is spent just with work, homework, and phone with my girlfriend. So
Mm-hmm.
to for instance, like people like Austin, like, I haven't
Oh
heard
yeah.
in a while. Like,
Really? Wow. Because that's your guy. You've been seeing him more recently. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like I can't like see anybody like at all.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. For sure. Yeah. I get
uh,
it, man. Because that's another reason I like this, you know, interview series because it gives me, you know, an excuse and yeah, just an excuse to talk to friends and people.
yeah, I
Yeah.
see what you did there.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Right.
It used to actually call these people. It's like, hey, man, can you come out of your cave for like 5 minutes?
I know this is
Look there, bearded dude,
right.
hasn't seen sunlight in months. The
Right. This
club in a
whole
loincloth is a podcast.
okay.
Podcast what?
Right. I know this whole thing was birthed out of me being lonely like, during quarantine. I'm just
Tarzan. Call me Tarzan J.
oh snap. No, I'm just kidding. A
Oh.
little bit. No, it's not just lonely, but
That's
but
all
that's
right,
yeah,
man.
right,
Brutally honest stuff we're
uh,
dealing with, man.
right,
God,
right. Man, I could
so
talk to you for hours, man. But yeah, I'm really grateful to talk to you, to have this time again. We just grew up together. You're a dear friend, and talk about how our musical journeys have, crossed and overlapped, and just to dig in about music theory. It's been really cool, man. Yeah, it's been fun.
awesome. Well, okay, answer me. Are you still rolling
Yeah,
or?
man, we're recording. Yeah,
Oh
let me know.
man, all right. Cause
Well, I
yeah,
mean, we'll turn the recording off, and we can talk a bit more afterwards. Yeah,
yeah. I just got one personal question to ask.
sure,
But I
man.
mean, I guess I don't wanna put that one on the thing. That's why I asked, man. But
Okay, but yeah, what
yeah.
about people will see this. Where do you want them? Do you want them to follow you anywhere?
Oh yeah. Yeah, if there's any means of following me, it would be my personal website. That's devincheca.com, and my Instagram is the Shady Proof, but I might actually change that
Hmm.
because that's a tag I've had since like fifth grade or something.
Right.
It was about time I get rid of it, man. I
It's,
noticed you have
it's
a way more professional Instagram presence than me. Like
where's the shady proof? Do you want to say what the
that was
meaning of that is, or like?
yeah, that was actually a music thing. Strangely enough,
Oh, really? Hmm.
yeah, there was like with you remember Cutie.
For
Um,
sure.
he back in like I think fifth grade, fifth grade, we were just listening to tons of Eminem and D12s and
Um.
Proof was more
Hmm.
of them. I think Proof had died that year actually.
Hmm.
But anyway, so we eventually were on that topic, him and I, just goofing around. You know how
Yeah.
we were joking around. He was like, "Dude, you should go for the Shady Proof," and this was before like the word shady.
Oh, like shade, like throwing shade at people. Right?
it
That's
didn't
fire! Oh snap!
it didn't have that meaning back then though. Like
Yeah, you're like impenetrable to people's like hate and shade. That's dope, man.
it was totally different, goofy meeting back then when we came up.
Oh
He
snap!
said it was like, dude, you should change that. That should be your Facebook. That should be your email. And so then I
That's
went
what it
out.
was.
That sounds pretty awesome. So I
Yeah, and
went.
Chudy is a really smooth, really cool guy. So I mean, you kind of got to like listen to like his
Yeah.
opinion.
I mean, if I was gonna jump off a cliff because someone told me to, the only person that I would go and do that if they told me to would have been if he said
Yeah, he would
so.
have said it just like, dude, you should just like, yeah, go jump off the cliff. You're just so calm and
Oh
smooth.
my
Like,
goodness, where have you been all my life? I should totally do that. And then I would jump and I'd be like, yeah, there's a trampoline down there, right?
like no, no, man.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, it's
Don't
not.
jump. But yeah, man, that was it. Like, I mean,
Wait, but it doesn't mean that like I don't. I almost get it. Like you're, are you better than Eminem? Is that what it is?
no,
Like
no,
you're
no,
the
no, no, no,
proof
no,
of
no,
like.
no way, in no way, no, no, no. It was more like because it was so shady, and then Proof, the rapper, both like
Oh, I
it,
don't know
it,
proof. Okay.
it rolled off the tongue. Like you could Google
Um,
anything in most cases and be like, no, 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 I'm not. My name's not Christian Millette. I'm the Christian Millette.
the one and only.
it
Oh
makes
snap.
it makes you sound official. When you
Mm,
put
right,
the
right.
at the beginning of it, it's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. My name is not Devin Checker. I'm the Devin Checker.
Yeah, there it is, right?
But
Oh
yeah,
man.
that tag might change a little bit. I might actually put the Devin Checker or something to just kind of migrate it from that because like people will see it and like what is your face,
Yeah.
dude?
I see. I mean, yeah, I noticed was as we were setting this up, you had the website as Devin Checker and your email is Devin Checker. So I was
Oh,
surprised. I was thinking like
lucky enough
this
to be
guy's
both.
going away from the shady proof. So I noticed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I might have to make that change at some point. It really gives me an idea there. I'm gonna write that one down because I have been thinking for a long time as as to what I can change that to. Because I mean, there's nothing. It would still have to have some sort of catchiness.
Mm-hmm.
The Shady
I don't know.
Queen instead of the Shady Grove. Yeah,
I
that
mean, but I think one opinion, my opinion, this is
yeah,
like off of Gary V's opinion as well, is like
I gotta.
when it's your name, when it's like your name, and since you do have all these different talents, then it's just like you're gonna you building up whatever you're building, it's gonna your name is gonna be able to encapsulate all that because that's who you are as a person.
Man, that was a good idea. I mean, because you have the separate you have the separate accounts though, right? You have like the
I
personal.
do. Yeah, my personal and then the music one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Do I follow that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know, right?
But yeah.
Do you follow yourself on the other accounts? Like, does your personal
Oh,
follow the
like
actual?
no, I don't. I don't. No, but I meant like, do
Like
I
one
follow that
extra
advice?
follower, man. There's like one
Oh,
extra follower. You can like.
forget that guy. No, no, I love that guy. No, I keep him
Oh my
separate.
god. Oh man. Okay. All right. All right. All right.
All
All right.
right. Well, yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this Harmonic Heart interview. I'm really grateful to y'all for listening and thankful to Devin as well. And yeah, man, we're gonna chat a little bit more offline. Harmonic Heart, we're the podcast. We have the YouTube page and Instagram and all that, but you can see that in the description. Alrighty, guys.